Well, as a very visual person, I tend to gravitate more toward films than I do comic books. But whenever a comic book can be really cinematic, and I think a good example of that would be Sin City, that's when I start to get really interested and start to really get into what I'm reading. So I think the art is the hugest part, and then the story helps, like, I guess, accommodates it.
Even though art is very important, I honestly can't look at something if it looks ugly to me. But storyline is very important because even if the art's beautiful, if the storyline is very lackluster, I'll just put the book back. It's just like, this was okay, but it's not as captivating as it should be.
Storyline, not even close. I can read a book if the art isn't good, but I can't read a book if the story is bad.
I can't really pick because I would say both, but if it was the case, I would like to see artwork because that gives the artist some type of identity because that's their style of drawing or artwork. So it tells a lot about the artist by the way they draw.
I would say, for regular comic books, I'm gonna say storyline, and for other ones, I'm gonna say artwork. Like I like graphic novels, so the artwork is very detailed and everything. But I guess a comic book could have mediocre artwork and still have a good storyline, like the '40s Batman. Not the artwork that you'll see today, but it got the point across.
I mean, just piggybacking off of what he said, like how he said, like the Batman. I feel like that's a better style of drawing because now when you look at certain comic books, you damn sure can't copy some of those drawings, right? But like those old comics, you at least had some type of hope that I could just trace this or I could draw that too. Like it gives you that type of inspiration that you could do the same thing. Now it's like to do a comic book, you have to do 40 million things plus one. So, I mean, that's why I like the artwork.
I have to say, as a visual person, as an artist, if a story doesn't have good art, I kind of lose interest. But that being said, the story is the backbone of the book. If you have good, pretty pictures, and the story is weak, it may look nice, it may catch your attention initially, but it won't bring you back month after month to buy that book, to read that book, to invest the time and the effort into following that storyline if the story's not good.
I think it can only be a positive thing. I mean, of course, there's always the issue of being as faithful as you can to the source. But I think as long as they keep on making comic book films, like it can only be a positive thing because they're just raising more and more awareness of the medium. Like the Avengers, that's the highest grossing film of all time, and I don't see what the problem with that is. I mean, more people are now going to read Avengers because of it. They're going to go back and read the Avengers and then read like current lineups and stuff like that. So I think that's only a positive thing. And as they keep on making more and more films, the sky's the limit, I guess.
I like them a lot because it expands the readership of comics. So more people will get into comics. Like I guess maybe it was a year ago, AVX, the Avengers vs. X-Men came out, and it came out right after the Avengers movie came out. So we sold, the store I was working at then sold so many more copies because of the movie. Like everybody would be like, "Hey, do you guys got that new comic based on the movie?" And we'd have to explain to them it wasn't really based on the movie, but that's piqued people's interests. So I think they're fantastic.
I like that because it seems like to me it'll bring in like a bigger crowd. Because not a lot of people just gonna go out to a comic book store and buy actual comics and sit down and read it. Because this generation now, they're not gonna sit down and read something, even though it still has pictures. They're not gonna sit down and read. But now when you make it into a movie or a TV show, that's bringing on a more variety of people. Because when you went to the movie theater, you saw from old people down to young kids watching the Avengers movie. So You know, it broadens it out. It brings in a bigger crowd. You know, at the end of the day, everybody at some point watches some type of cartoon or something. They might not say it, but they do.
You know, like going off what he said, it does bring in a bigger crowd. You know, it introduces like whatever, because not everybody's gonna go into a comic book and just randomly start reading a comic book. You know, it introduces that superhero to the general public. But you know, for some fans like us that have read comic books and then seen the movie adaptation, and we're going, "What is this? This has nothing." They divert from, you know, what the comic book is, and then Hollywood makes up something else. But you know, that's
Like
just
Batman.
yeah, like Batman. And the last, and Spider-Man 3.
Terrible.
So they did the Avengers right.
Yes, that
And-
was the one movie out of so many that they actually did perfectly.
Dave
Started it out perfectly.
Dave had to redo Superman so many times because I still ain't got it.
And we just gave up. They're just gonna leave him to the cartoons like he should be.
They did X-Men, very X-Men, the last one.
Okay,
the
the
last one. Yeah,
First two was
the first two. I get them.
Wolverine was some shit.
Yeah.
I don't think I concur, so I didn't know that.
The things in it. Okay. Yeah, I would say, like, you know, it's good that they adapt them into Hollywood films in order to broaden it to make it relevant, I say, to the modern era, to the social media and stuff, so they can be able to sell more merchandise and everything. But, you know, as far as in-depth goes, I would say at least follow the comic books in the original story at least 60% of the time. And not just make up something and then make the comic book fans, or I'll say nerds, because that's what we are, mad.
I mean, but that brings in controversy. So either way,
Yeah.
when you do bring in controversy, no matter what, they're gonna go watch it just to see if it relates to the comic. So that's gonna bring in money
Controversy
in.
creates cash.
Exactly.
Controversy is good.
As a fan, I actually greatly enjoy them. I like seeing the heroes that I grew up reading on the big screen finally. But also as a fan, there's a double-edged sword with that, because I feel as though certain people shouldn't play certain characters, or if they get parts of the storyline incorrect, then I get upset at it, because as a fan, I want them to do their research and make sure it's 100% accurate, 100% correct. It's like when I see films based on comic books, I see it as, okay, what if I was making this movie, and what problems are there in the movie, what could have been done better, things like that.
As a comic fan, I find comic to film or comic to TV adaptations frustrating, because, you know, it's not a realistic venture in many ways. It's good for the people making the movies, because, you know, there's a whole story made for them. But for the real fan, you want to see, you know, decades of storytelling compressed into 2 hours, and it's just not realistic. And so a lot of fans become very frustrated with that, because they don't do exactly what they think they should do, when writers really have to cut and trim a storyline to fit a 2-hour framework. So sometimes it's really rewarding to get a comic book adaptation on film or on TV. Sometimes it's very frustrating as a fan. You know, I encourage people to, you know, don't just go to the movies and watch the stories. Actually go out and read them and support the backbone of the storyline. You know, it's good that people go to the theater and watch a film, but it's really important that you investigate the actual backstory, and you'll find it much more rewarding to actually pursue and read those backstories and really see how complicated and involved these topics can be, and these stories can be.